And now, please welcome Rashiq Fataar.
Good afternoon, everyone. I live in the world's most designed city. It might seem strange coming to New York with its numbered rectilinear avenues and telling that Cape Town, South Africa, my city, is more carefully designed than New York. For 50 years, urban planning and urban design was used as a tool of segregation and oppression. For 350 years, where you could live, where you could go to school, how you could move around the city, where you expressed yourself culturally and socially, was controlled by your race. And today, our city, as this graphic illustrates, is still divided along racial lines spatially. And there's no finer example in this than our central station in Cape Town, which was designed in the 60s to separate people by race. If it looks big, it is. It's actually 2 or 3 stations, concourses, platforms, and trains separating people of different race and different skin color. And even power stations are used to divide communities. Here, 3 different communities were divided by race with this power station, each with vastly different qualities of life. And this legacy persists today. Cape Town has one of the highest income inequalities and violent crime rates in the world. And we also are one of the most sprawled cities in Africa. And so our task today is not just to undo yesterday, it's to redesign, to undesign, to fix, and to stitch. But I haven't just come here to reflect on the past of our city. Your very own New York Times rated Cape Town the #1 place to go in 2014. And this is what inspires me most about my city. It's our immense natural environment, our industries, and the persistence of our people who, against the odds, continue to make a life for themselves in Cape Town while we're undoing our past. As an 8-year-old, I was inspired by Cape Town's bid for the Olympic Games, and this powerful visual remained in my mind for 20 years. But when the 2010 FIFA World Cup came around, I didn't understand why Cape Town Stadium, a 4.4 billion rand public building, with all the designs not being shown to the public, just the winning entry. And the media would have you believe that the entire city was against the stadium, but in fact, only 12 people legally opposed the stadium. Even more concerning, with a city as sprawled as ours, our urban edge was moved in 2013 to accommodate development for 800,000 people, 35 kilometers north of our city center, or about 21 miles. And only 5 public comments were recorded. It's with these questions in mind that I started Future Cape Town, first as my personal blog and Twitter account, and today as an independent nonprofit to answer these questions and to promote more discourse and dialogue in our city, Cape Town. So how do we start a conversation? Well, we've seen from Tahrir Square in Cairo to the streets of Hong Kong, social media has immense power. Today, starting with just a few tweets, my observations of my city, we have over 80,000 social media followers across all our platforms, building a voice for the future of our city. And how do we share information when information was often so lacking about some of our biggest developments? Well, our website, futurecapetown.com, has 300,000 views a year, 260 articles published a year, and interestingly, 40% international readership. But how do we bring participation to people? Consider that just 20 years ago, 80% of our population could not vote. So we co-designed an exaggerated and tall ballot box and took it to public spaces. In just one day, we collected 160 comments. That's 155 more than was collected for development for 800,000 people. And how can we make people see our city through new eyes? We started a series of walking tours, and what we found here in this photo, outside the first new tall skyscraper in our city since the 90s, was that only 2 of the attendees on the tour of 30 knew what was being built, even though it was already half built. And with this spatial division in our city, what we found out was that many people didn't know their city. They didn't have common experiences, and we needed to create forums for dialogue. We did this in 2 ways, even without the funding. The first, conferences like these, bringing actors, designers, and leaders together with young, motivated people. And secondly, this year, launching our Young Urbanist program for city makers under the age of 40, connecting the next generation of urbanists thought leaders, and city makers. But how can a physical space also promote this dialogue and democracy? In 2014, we collaborated with the Dutch consulate in Cape Town and created something, perhaps an urban laboratory, called Department of Design. For 3 weeks, through dialogues, workshops, and exhibitions, we brought South African and Dutch designers together to tackle our urban challenges in this incredible space. This is the gateway to this space, designed by Dutch design firm Droog, using recycled materials, continuing our engagement on sustainability. And over here, the auditorium, where we've welcomed 1,500 people across 17 days through 70 events. But in this vision of a just and a fair and a livable city, is it enough just to have dialogue and use social media and events? But action is important. So we started in our own neighborhood, Sea Point in Cape Town, which has its own 5-kilometer promenade alongside the Atlantic Ocean. It's becoming more economically diverse. It's becoming more racially diverse. And what happened was we focused on these smaller spaces and parks in our community. We were approached by a very innovative developer called Block, who are very forward-thinking, to consult with them and work with them on improving these public spaces. And I'll share with you 2 of them today. In the first public space, a community park called Thornhill Park, we asked ourselves, how could a park work for a community and a community work for a park? Thornhill Park wasn't embraced by people who lived there. It had high fences and tall grass, and very few people actually went there. But coming from a corporate and finance background, I wanted some numbers behind this. So when we were speaking about a high-performance public space, we created a tool called a radar diagram for high-performance public spaces. And of course, it included numbers. The team weren't happy at all. It did 2 things. Firstly, it showed investors where their investment in public space could have the most impact. And secondly, it showed the public where they could get involved and have the most impact through their time and through their resources. What this tool showed us was, in fact, that people, communities, their time and their resources would have the highest impact in transforming the park, in addition to the investment by the private developer. And so just recently, we formed Friends of Thornhill Park. Our work here was just to be an instigator or a spark or a catalyst to get the community to embrace their own park again. 9 months later, the park revamp's underway through an innovative partnership. The developer pays the capital expenditure, the City Parks Department, which are fantastic, pay the running cost, water and electricity, and the Friends of Thornhill Park will top that up with finance and resources, and of course, their time. At a second space, we wanted to go a bit further and ask, how can public space help reimagine not just the space, but our institutions and how they work together? This is a space, a forecourt outside the library in Sea Point where we live, adjacent to a community center and across the road from a local school. And recently, the local government decided to fence it up, creating a barrier to the space. So we had to understand who actually uses the space. And not just the users that were there today, but the users we wanted to attract the space, and the users that were using the space even when nobody was watching. That includes the elderly using the library in the very early mornings, the homeless using it at certain times of the evening, and the skateboarders who came there after 5 p.m. And recently, we launched a design competition for the space. Our brief was very clear. Don't just redesign the space. Rethink how the library, the school, the intersection, and the various businesses could work together to reimagine the entire system. And in just a few days' time, we'll announce the winning team after we invited about 9 local design firms. So where to from here? We know that our organization doesn't have all the answers to cities and to Cape Town's issues, but 900 million people move into African cities in just the next 4 decades, and we'll have to move quickly. In 2013, we formed Future Lagos, another wing of our organization, and we'll need more movements like ours and different to ours, of different shapes and forms and sizes in different cities around the world to promote a more equitable, fair, just, and sustainable city. Thank you very much.